Welcome back, my friends, to episode 18 of Beyond Bricks and Mortar. Now, today I'm joined by Channi Greenwall, founder and CEO of Olympix AI, an incredible entrepreneur focused in the space of cybersecurity, crypto, AI, a world that very few of us actually understand. Even after this conversation, I remain a little bit confused, but what I do know is that Channi is an absolute expert at what she does. As an entrepreneur, Channi was faced with tremendous challenges and adversity as it relates to building her business, to raising capital for her business, to sustaining a successful business, especially in a field as intricate and complicated as this one. For those entrepreneurs out there listening and watching this episode, you will retain a tremendous amount of value listening to this one and hearing how Channi built what she has today. This was definitely a very advanced insight on entrepreneurship. As always, I'm very excited for you to listen and watch this one. And if you are new here, welcome. New episodes of Beyond Bricks and Mortar are every single Wednesday. So please make sure to hit that like, subscribe, follow, all that jazz. And now, here she is, Channi Greenwall. I know you are very busy. I feel like every time we interact, I could tell you're very busy. You have a lot going on in your life. How old were you when you started your company?
I was 25.
25 years old.
I want to say, I was 25.
And before you started your company, you specialized in, I quote, mission critical security infrastructure at JP Morgan Chase, followed by a role as a product lead at Security Scorecard. So by the time you did start your company, you already had a pretty good understanding of security engineering and infrastructure. So what made you jump into entrepreneurship at that point in your life?
I think I was very fortunate in terms of the circumstances that led me to start Olympix, and also the problem that Olympix is solving, and that just kind of falling on my lap. But then again, you make your own luck. So I actually completed my undergrad and master's in 5 years. And while I was doing that, I was working at Chase. So I had excelled in the internship, meaning like one of the MDs was like, really liked me. I was winning hackathons, and they offered me a spot.
You were winning hackathons?
Like they had company-wide.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I did a lot of hackathons in college. There's been one hackathon that I lost. It happened to be at my own company, but
what does it, wait. What does a hackathon look like?
It's like a coding competition.
That's so interesting. And what are you building or trying to do, accomplish with the code?
They give you some sort of prompt, so they're like, it depends. That you could be anything. It could be solving a specific problem or be in a specific sphere. But they give you a prompt. They're like, build technology that solves this problem, and you go ahead and build it. So like for Chase, they kind of gave us open mic for like build whatever you want, and open mic for coders, I guess. And I was a software engineer at the time, so I had a really frustrating experience getting placed into my team for my internship because I had a security background. I was already doing my at that point a minor in cybersecurity, but I ended up just upping it to a master's. And so I really wanted to be on the security team, and then there were people on the security team that really wanted to be on the data team, and I realized that their placement for how they actually place interns was really messed up. So we leveraged various algorithms and built out an application that they actually ended up rolling out to the organization as a whole for internships. But anyways, I
like that. I feel like I'm sitting with someone who's a lot smarter than I am with this type of stuff. I mean, it feels like a very particular field.
Computer science or cybersecurity?
Like, I guess cybersecurity more so, like what you guys do.
Yeah, so it's funny. I got into it because my mom, she went to RSA in San Francisco, which is a conference, just randomly, She didn't have something to do that day, so she just popped her head in a conference, and she's like, Channi, you got to get into security. So I went to find an internship, and I found an internship at a consulting firm where the team was ex-FBI that shut down the Silk Road. Uh-huh. So, yeah, it was a really cool opportunity. Again, like, I don't really know how I landed there. And then that summer I was like, wow, fun to build, more fun to break. We were doing everything from a major fraud investigation, a major financial institution, where I was writing algorithms to find kind of human error, where different account managers were fraudulent and stealing money from people who had like social security checks or had passed away. Like that happens actually quite frequently, apparently, to a drug investigation in the tri-state area where anyone who overdosed, we'd take like their computers, their phones, and we'd leverage forensics and Celebrite technology to like find information about the source dealer.
I was just going to ask you, like, what does it look like to do this work? Like,
was my first like
what are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, it depends for what the case is, right? So for a fraud investigation, you're looking for like accounts that had large amounts of money deducted in weird periods of time that didn't follow like a specific pattern. So, or if someone died, if like money, like some of it's kind of easy, some of it's a little hard. And then for a drug investigation, it's just like if you can find any information that's like related to
narcotics.
Did
you find a lot of cool stuff?
I shouldn't say cool. I was a little intern, so I was just sitting next to them, like doing everything I could. And I've always been the kind of person where I'm like, as much work as you'll give me, I'll take. So I was trying to like leech onto every case and everything that everyone was doing, and just like do their busy work. And then I ended up doing really well, so they liked me. Yeah.
They liked your contribution to the work.
Yeah, they did not like me. No, they did. I had a great summer there, and that summer when I was like, okay, I'm gonna go cybersecurity full time. This is a lot more interesting. Like it feels like CSI Miami. It's like something's always happening. Like in
like a
computer science, like when you're in university for computer science, it changes so dynamically because semester to semester you're learning new things. When you're actually in real world with computer science, unless you're at like a high growth startup, or a lot of roles are just kind of like monotonous day in, day out. And I like things a little chaotic. I think there's like people break in stress, people like thrive in stress. I think stress is good for me.
Well, I also like what you said, fun to build, more fun to break.
Yeah.
You're like a firecracker, I feel like.
So I did my master's, and then as I told you, then after that I interned at JP Morgan, and I was interning there, and I got along really well with the MD of the team, and he invited me to stay during the year while I was doing my master's and work there. So I was working there while I was in my master's.
Cool.
It was, again, an awesome opportunity. And then I didn't want to go full-time into corporate world. I really liked startups and kind of the dynamic nature of them. Yeah. It follows the same theme as security, right? Like something's breaking, something's going that direction. It's like,
also like less compliance. Like you can build with, I would imagine you can build with a little bit more freedom to do it your way.
Yeah.
Than working in a large financial institution. I feel like it's just you're buried in compliance.
Even at like a big tech, you're also, you're segmented. Like a product manager tells you what to build and you build it, and maybe, you get a little more freedom than that, but you're segmented, and I don't know. I don't like being segmented.
Yeah, I hear that. So is that why you moved on to start your own thing?
So then I moved to Security Scorecard. So I had wanted to start something. I think by the same token, like as we were speaking about hackathons in college, I participated in a lot of hackathons, and I just like that idea of like, oh, we have something we have to build, and then we go and execute and build it like as quickly as we can, and we get together a good team. And it kind of follows the same steps of like entrepreneurship, if you think about it, or also potentially product management in an org where you get that kind of responsibility, which I was really lucky to get at Security Scorecard. So a friend of mine told me you should go work at a late stage startup before just jumping in and trying to start your own company. Best advice I ever got. I think you can say the same from early and late, but late stage, like a Series C, Series E, things are really off the ground.
Yeah.
But there's still that room and comfort to explore and experiment and move your way up quickly and have that one-on-one time. So when I was interviewing for Security Scorecard, I was interviewing with one of the co-founders, and he's like, what do you want to do? And I looked at him and I'm like, I want to work for you. I don't want to work for anyone else. Let's throw the balls on the table. And he said, okay, I'll bite. What would you do? And we went through the interview process, and he ended up hiring me directly under him. And so while I was there, I built out a new line of business for them. So they focus on external security posture. I'll like keep it kind of, service level, but external, and I introduced internal.
Service level is probably a good idea.
Yeah. So was building that out. It was best experience of my life. Like you're learning from someone who's built $1 billion company.
Yes.
So I moved part-time to Miami at that point. So I could like be in person with him as much as I could. It was incredible. And at the same time, so I guess go way back to when I said, like, I got into security through the internship. That team had told me, like, you should buy crypto. And so in 2017, I bought a little bit of crypto with my summer internship money, but that was it. I just, like, threw some money in there. It wasn't more than that. And in 2021, it was the huge NFT.
Yeah.
Everyone was
big
going
spike
crazy.
and all that.
Yeah, and what stood out to me was really smart, deep, technical people I knew were moving full-time into the space.
Interesting.
And so I was like, maybe it's not just a JPEG.
Yeah, maybe it's time.
Maybe there's something here.
Yeah.
So I personally just learned best by doing. So I'm like, I'm going to launch an NFT project. This is going to be my best, like, easiest way to get my hands dirty, to understand what's going on. Like, if I read, I'm not gonna grasp it the same way as if I touch.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
I feel like I'm kind of similar. I always I like to get my hands into something to learn how to do it. Like, you could watch food content or bread content day and night.
Are you a cooker?
I am a big cooker.
Yeah?
Yes. But like during COVID, for me to stay creatively charged, I became like a master bread maker.
Yeah.
I probably could have done
or like,
yeah,
what are we
sourdough.
talking about?
Like,
okay.
very intense. I probably could have done something a little smarter with my time, but like, I don't know. Everything just felt like I just wanted to.
Sourdough sounds very productive.
It was very productive.
I'm
Like, really, like, it gave me a new challenge to go after. And
I hear it's hard.
it is. It's difficult. And by the end of it, I felt like I made the best bread I ever had. So, and that's just kind of, the same thing with like
do you
making
go
video.
Back now?
Not really. No. Starter's been dead a long time. But yeah, even the same thing with making video or playing music or doing anything. Like, I've always just gotten into the creative hobbies and.
Right. And like the iterations.
Yeah, exactly. And like, that's how you feel like, how do I say, but it's like, it's almost like that's how you feel accomplished, like getting into the weeds in something instead of just like familiarizing yourself with it or gaining knowledge on the topic. Like, I have a little bit of knowledge on the topic of what you do, but it sounds very, very intricate the way you describe it, like, and very detailed.
Yeah, it's something.
Well, tell me about Olympix.
Okay, so
great name, by the way.
Thank you.
What's the origin of that name?
So security is very dynamic, as you know, and the company's aim is to, and I can scooch back in a second and kind of tell you about the problem we're solving, but is to continuously make the Web3 ecosystem safer. And we do this by building the best developer tools on market and giving the developers these tools so they can write secure smart contracts. So a smart contract is code that can execute. So like, think of it like an escrow. Like, me and you want to make a bet, and we're betting on how many views this podcast gets. And let's say you say 100 and I say 200. And I don't know where you upload it, but wherever you upload is like, will be the oracle. And our money will go into this contract, and whoever wins, it'll just automatically execute. There's no one who has to hold it.
Yeah.
So they're very fascinating in that sense. And you're seeing it with even like fine art, people are adopting NFTs. And then there's DeFi, which is decentralized finance, where people are putting all their money in, and you're seeing over 70 billion in volume, like, just attached to Solidity, the smart contract language that we particularly work with. But you're seeing a lot of money attached to this, and it's international money. It's not just coming from anywhere. People are putting it there, and there isn't any like proper security infrastructure around it.
Yeah.
There's a little bit. There's audit.
I think that's a big concern for a lot of people who even want to consider learning more about the topic.
Right. It's a barrier to entry for the ecosystem. So I guess take it back. So when I launched this NFT project, I realized there weren't any good security tools. And 3 things about the attack surface. And so when we talk about security, we often refer to something called an attack surface. And that's like how much space can you breach, basically, right? Like, how much is vulnerable.
Right.
And your attack surface becomes bigger the more you introduce. So the more employees, every employee introduces something, right? They could pick up a scam call. They could respond to the wrong email. They could give it, right? Then there's software vulnerabilities. There's so much that plays into attack surface. But the Web3 attack surface in particular stood out for me for 3 reasons. And I'll explain it this way. So the first is the immutable nature. So in Web 2, when we ship code, so like any traditional startup, patch, redeploy, like nonstop, we're reshipping code. That's why, like, Mark Zuckerberg says, move quick and break things, because you can. You have a real estate tech product. If a user reports a bug to you, no big deal. Your team fixes it, right?
Right.
In Web3, you don't have that luxury because the code is immutable.
You can't report phishing on an email or something like that.
It's the code's like on the blockchain. The code's there, and the code's immutable. Like, you don't have that luxury to just change it.
Right.
The second reason is, the transparent nature. So like in Web 2, if you have a proper organization, you have security via obscurity, you have the luxury of a firewall. So you have all those proper protections in place.
And like a VPN also.
Yeah, you have all these. I mean, I guess in a Web 2, you could connect to a VPN, but your smart contract code is always going to be on the blockchain, which is a virtual machine, which everyone can access and see. So the transparent nature, and then the third reason is direct access liquidity. So again, like let's say you're a bad actor, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go like exploit Ariel's company, and I go to your company and I steal the data and then I sell it on the dark web and then maybe I get some crypto. In Web3, it's like there are these protocols and they have, hundreds of thousands, I think millions of people's money globally in them. And they can have, some protocols we work with have billions in liquidity. So they'll be like, hey, Ariel protocol, 80 billion in liquidity. Line 42, I see a reentrancy vulnerability. So just like one type of vulnerability. And I have that 80 million in my wallet in a matter of hours. So we're seeing what's really interesting is AP2 groups, so like threat actor groups that traditionally operated in the Web 2 space, moving to the Web 3 space. So for example, North Korea is funding their nuclear program with money taken from Web 3 exploits.
My goodness.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
So like, I guess when I was building this NFT project, like it was really just a fun side project, 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. I thought to myself, well, this is such a huge attack surface. There must be the coolest security tech ever. Like that's what led me in this rabbit hole. And I had my dream job. I was working for like the coolest entrepreneurs ever. I didn't want to leave, but then I realized no one was building this. And I was like, if I don't build this, someone will. This is like a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Like a sense of responsibility to go for it.
Yeah. And like, how lucky am I that I get to tackle this problem?
Yeah.
Like, this is such a cool problem. Like this ecosystem will not scale without this problem solved. And what if I get it right? With a startup, there's a lot of risk. What if you get it wrong? Sure. But also, what if you get it right? Like if you get it right, you unlock.
So far, you've got it right.
We're doing pretty good. We have a free tool, and that's it's very common in the space to have some sort of give back to the community.
Yeah.
And the idea with the free tool is like proving
it's like
out.
OpenAI and
Exactly, freemium model. Yeah. It's quite popular. But the idea was to prove out, like, will these Web3 developers actually own security? So, like, right now what they're doing is they're going to get a manual audit. Like, this is how they handle security right now. Like, I'll tell you the world looks like now before Olympix and what it looks like before Olympix and after Olympix, So
let's hear it.
Okay, so before Olympix, like, you're a Web3 Solidity developer, right? And you have a protocol, or let's say you're the CEO of the protocol. You have your team build out this protocol. You go and you get a manual audit. So you're going to wait anywhere from 3 weeks to 6 months for this audit to even like get in line. You're going to pay anywhere from 25 to 500K.
Okay.
And then you're going to get back the results and your teams are going to make the changes and then you're going to ship your code. Now, 90% of exploited contracts were audited. So an audit is not a stamp of security. There are brilliant auditors who find security vulnerabilities, but it's really not foolproof when I tell you 90%, right? That's not a stat you want to hear when you're like a CEO of a protocol and all the money is locked in. So what we wanted to do is introduce like, okay, when the developers write code, what tools do they have to help them write secure code from the start? How can we actually shift the responsibility in the ecosystem left and give it to the developers? And so the first pillar we had to prove is like, will these developers actually accept the responsibility and own security from the start? So we built out...
It's a good question. I feel like a lot of corners must have been cut.
It's easier to not, right? It's always easier to not. And the way to think about this also, like,
it happens
zoom
in
out.
everything. My goodness. Anyone like in any industry where they're building things, like real estate included, there's always corners being cut and things that they're hiding behind the bricks, behind everything.
Yeah, exactly. And a way to think about it too is like security, innovation always precedes security. Like, let's say we're building a city, you build a house, and then all of a sudden there's another house, then there's some people lingering, so you put an alarm system. Then all of a sudden you have a little city, then you get a police station, right? Then you have a country, and then you have FBI, CIA, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it doesn't matter until it does. And we're kind of at that pivotal point where, like, this ecosystem will not scale unless people double down on security.
Yeah, they have to really prioritize security.
So that first question we answered, we built a tool that helps developers find vulnerabilities in their code in real time while they write it, and 18% of Solidity developers actually use it. So pretty good. Yeah. And now we're heads down and building other additional tools, and we're beginning to sell them to enterprises in the space. Like enterprise is I say it like this because in the space to be an enterprise, like you could have 12 developers and your protocol could have $1 billion in like liquidity in it. So that's like an enterprise to us.
Wow. How many people work at Olympix?
6.
6 people. Have you guys had to raise money to grow?
We had to raise, yeah, from the beginning. So when I started, I didn't raise money. So I left my previous company, Security Scorecard, with like 6 months savings. Like, hope this works out. Hope it, just went for it. And
that takes courage.
Yeah, it wasn't, my parents definitely like were not excited about it. Yeah. And even like, I'm telling you, like, it's not like I wanted to leave that job. I loved the job. I loved my bosses. I loved where I worked. So it was really hard, but like it felt like it was like itching me. Yeah. Like, if I don't do it now, when am I going to do it?
Right. And you were also young enough that like it's now or never. Jump in.
Yeah, jump in. Yeah. Exactly. And I guess you can always play like the regret framework. Like if I looked back in 20 years, like would I be upset that I didn't do it? And the answer would be yes. And like if I did it and like I made some progress or I did it to some extent and I failed, like would I be upset? And I think the answer is no. No. Even if it failed tomorrow, the answer would be no. Like we've done something incredible already. It won't. But like.
No, you can't regret your failures.
Yeah.
You can't. Yeah. I tried to build a building in Detroit. Huge failure.
Really?
Yeah, huge failure.
My mom's from Detroit.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, well, from not Detroit proper, but near Detroit.
Yeah, I tried to develop a project there, and I didn't make it through. And the hole got so big, the hole of expenses and debt related to the project, that I had to walk away from it. So, but do I regret that process? Not at all. It gave me a huge education in real estate development.
Right.
So, and that's definitely an education that I'll deploy into, the time when it's right.
Where do you develop mostly?
I don't.
You don't?
I'm a real estate broker. I sell homes. That's my main thing. I suppose that's built around my creativity. It always has been, at least, especially for the last decade. I've really used my creativity to advance in my career, doing all my own marketing, managing the process, managing the story. Every home tells its own story. And I think that there's a big difference between selling homes and the real estate game, because real estate is really a numbers game. And if the numbers make sense, you make the deal, right? But in selling homes it's emotional.
It is. Yeah.
It's emotional, and it's also very, very fulfilling. You get to deploy hospitality and creativity in the work and really fall in love with the work by using it as a vehicle for the thing you're really most passionate about. And I think that that's like, in my business, it's really important. There's so many real estate agents, right? And like, there's so many, uniform things that all real estate agents do and say about themselves on social media. Right. So I think that stuff is great, but it doesn't create a lot of longevity in the business. In order to create real longevity in the business and to have staying power is to really be in love with it, and to be in love with it through the thing that you actually are passionate about. For me, it's doing stuff like this. It's also hospitality.
Continuously placed though on these big projects and like the most like the nicest. How does that happen?
Well, I mean, I've been doing it a long time, and I think I've made a lot of mistakes over the years that have taught me a lot of really valuable lessons. And now I feel very trusting in my ability to execute. And I think that, as time goes on, the more you take care of the work, the more it gives back to you, and the more it takes care of you. That. Yeah. And I don't think that's definitely not original to me, that one. It's very, very, very true. But and it's not the same as building a company, but it is entrepreneurship in its own form. So you kill, right? Yeah, and it is
entrepreneurship.
Yeah, you get beat up.
Yeah, I see John all the time. Like he's just like, it seems it's the same thing. It's the same game.
It's tough. It takes time, but it's like one of those things. I really believe this, that you just have to stay and keep moving. If you don't go out the other side of that revolving door, if you keep going, you will make it. It's really like it's who can survive the longest until they reach success.
Right.
That's kind of how it is. Because also, as a real estate agent, you're an independent contractor, so you're managing your books dollar for dollar. And
it's the same as entrepreneurship. You kill it. You're responsible.
Yeah.
For it all, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It all comes down to you. So you mentioned that you did raise some money to build your business. I'd imagine that to some degree is a nerve-wracking process, taking responsibility of an investor's money and grow it into this thing that you believe in. How did you approach fundraising and communicating with people and earning their trust?
It's a good question.
I don't even have that one written down.
Fundraising is really interesting. Do you ever see like how people get into college and sometimes you're like, how did that person get it? And then like, how did that person not?
Yeah, same thing. Like, how did that person get that job?
Right. Yeah. I think to some extent, fundraising can be like that. It's also a numbers game. So I was really lucky that when I left Scorecard, I was able to raise an initial like $350K or something. And that took me off the ground. I think that was like 3 months in.
Yeah, just to launch things.
Just to start moving.
Yeah.
And then from there,
what do you need to start moving? Sorry to cut you off. Like, what do what is that 350? How does that get you going?
Incorporate your company, pay for your lawyer, set up a company account, be able to hire maybe one person. Like, I didn't take a salary for, I want to say, like 6 months or 7 months. But you want to be able to hire like one engineer to start building a first version of your product. Or I'm trying to think what expenses were.
Sounds like really just
it wasn't I didn't have many engineer. Expenses. Yeah, it's headcount, I think, over anything. Like legal bill, incorporation, making sure everything's set up right. Nothing that crazy at first. You just like sleep at the office and you do everything yourself. And then no, I'm not joking. I really did sleep at the office the first couple months.
I would imagine you did. You sound like an entrepreneur.
But how do you build the trust? So I think you really have to know like what you're building. You have to come in the same way you come. Like, I was a product lead before, so you come with the same way. You have customer quotes. You've done your research.
Yeah.
You think there's like a 80 to 90% chance if you pull this off, this will work.
Yeah.
And then they have to decide, do I trust you to pull this off? And do I actually think it'll work?
Right. But yeah,
I get it. But you come with the proof points, right?
It starts with like you really understanding the work.
You have to understand the problem you're solving, the people you're going to be catering to. And you just have to be passionate about it. Like, I knew this was a huge problem. I knew like if someone solves it, it's a great unlock for the ecosystem. And the other thing I think that was hard with Web3 is as I was raising, FTX was collapsing.
Yeah.
So
that was one of my questions.
Yeah, it was really tough. A lot of people pulled out of my fundraise. So
people lost faith in the
world. Ecosystem. But it happens a lot. Like if you look at the crypto life cycle, it's always like this, buy it lows.
Yeah.
I always pinch myself because I'm like, I left my job, my salary, everything. And then I went full time into the space. Everything hit the lowest. Like, I think Bitcoin hit 23 after that or something crazy. Yeah. And I'm like, and I was so stupid I didn't put my money in.
I feel a little of that too. Yeah. Like, I wish I like during like in 2020, late 2020 was buying Ethereum and
right. But I had so much faith in the ecosystem. I was putting my entire life into it. Like, why didn't I put some of my savings? But I guess at that point I was like, I need to live off my savings.
Yeah. But you said you put a drop of it.
2017.
Yeah. So what did that turn into? That must have turned into something healthy.
Yeah, something.
Something good.
Yeah, I made a little bit of I have like a decent return.
That's good.
I should be putting more in, but
you're building your company at the same time.
I'm building my company at the same time. Yeah, I put a little bit every month. So just like half to crypto ecosystem, half to regular savings every month.
Are there any particular coins that you think are the best bet at this moment in time? I noticed that you were cheering for Solana recently.
Solana, this is again like the same thing with Olympix. Like, from a technical perspective, Solana makes a lot of sense. Will it gain user adoption, right? So like Solana allows it's a better technical solution than Ethereum for building on chain. So like Ethereum allowed applications to be built on this new virtual money, right? So Bitcoin, we just had virtual money. I'm just calling it that because virtual money.
Dumb it down.
I'm trying to. And then Ethereum, we could build on this virtual money. So we could build protocols, ways to trade finance, ways to game, ways to like earn money from meditation, to tokenize things. there's all these cool applications, and Solana just makes it like easier and cheaper to do that. But the question is, since 90% of smart contracts are developed in Solidity, which is tied to Ethereum, like, will people really move? I personally, I told everyone to buy Solana. I think I bought it back in 21, I bought again a couple months ago, I think when it was like 100. Now I think it's 180, 190.
Nice.
It's good. I think if you're like trying to be safe, you will never go wrong with like Ether, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So like if you're just like doing a monthly, I'm going to put some money aside, go Ethereum or Bitcoin.
Yeah. I actually asked on this podcast, I asked someone else in the real estate business if they had $1 million in equity, what would they put that $1 million into? And like before I could even finish the question, he said Bitcoin.
Really?
It's coming from a real estate investor.
Interesting.
So it was surprising. Like there are certain people that are really, really gung-ho about it. I feel like there's still such a huge percentage of your average Joe that just doesn't trust it yet.
Yeah, because we live in America.
Yeah.
Like we live in this bubble where we trust our government, we trust our dollar.
Yeah,
this is accessible. Like, yeah, but I mean, to the extent that like you don't think your money is gonna get taken from your account.
Yeah.
Right. You trust that your 5% treasury is gonna go up 5%.
Right.
In Venezuela and these other countries, they don't have that same trust and confidence. So sometimes putting it somewhere else, even if there's a chance of being exploited,
it's a lesser chance.
It's a lesser chance. So like DeFi protocols, they'll put stuff into, and like for Bitcoin, you're not. It's safe.
Yeah.
For Ethereum, it's safe if you just put it and you do it through some sort of decentralized exchange or something like that. Yeah.
So we got sidetracked a little bit, but in the growth of your company, we were talking about developing trust in order to raise capital.
So I think it's the same answer for any type of industry. You build a track record and you have people who say good things about you.
Yes.
And you work your ass off to get that. So like, again, I said this, like even for my first internship, like I'm always the last one there. Any work I can take on, like begging for it.
Yeah. You believe in proving yourself.
I think it's a must.
Yeah, absolutely.
And continuously, like every day, you got to go in and do that. So I think it's that you just work really hard at every single opportunity you get. Like you get the opportunity, then you juice it.
Yeah. Yeah. Milk it for everything it's worth.
Yeah. And if you do that, then you have people saying positive things about you. So again, I was really lucky. My last job, I was working at Security Scorecard, and both founders had good things to say about me, and they also personally invested. And then
that's great.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I'm very lucky to continue to get to work with them. And then at JP Morgan, the MD was like involved in my fundraise and helped me and gave me quotes and stuff. So he's now like a CTO at Goldman. So, you know, if you have quotes from those people, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
But you also need a compelling story, and they need to believe that you can execute on it.
Yeah.
And then I guess you do it in each step, and then you raise more money, and then you execute on the next thing, and you just keep going.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, you clearly understand your craft very, very well. Like you checked, and that was the first thing you said, like really understanding the intricacies of what you do.
Right.
You clearly do. And you speak about it very well. I find that generally that only comes after going through a lot to get to where you are at that point in time. It turns you into a savant on the topic, going through the mistakes and going through all those growing pains. But knowing what you know now, is there a particular piece of advice you would have given to yourself the day before you started Olympix?
I think it's something that I didn't realize at the time, but now I know to be absolutely true, that the most important thing in your success is the people around you who continuously bring you up. Because it's so much of an up and down, and like having my brother, my mom, my husband, like I come home all the time and I'm like in a bad mood or like whacked out, and just being like, it's okay, you got this. Like it sounds so stupid and silly.
It's not.
Because in the grand scheme of things, like you feel like you're doing such big things every day, and then someone's just like, you got this, I believe in you, like you'll figure this out. But like just that, because it's very easy with all the no's, with all the like the failures or the rejections or whatever, time after time. Like when I was first fundraising, we got an offer for $2 million, and then I was like, oh, these people aren't a good fit, like I'm gonna turn it down. Then for a month I I want to say over 100 meetings, got no offers. I'm like, oh, I'm such an idiot. I should have taken the 2 million.
Yeah.
Like I should have taken that valuation. Like, why did I think I'm better than this valuation? And then like, I just kept going. And then I got what, the 4.3, but it was good.
Well, you like casually, and then I got 4.3.
But like having those people around you that just support you, it's the most like, I don't want to say underappreciated because people who have it know it, but like unknown. Like, I think when I was like, oh, I'm going to need to do this, this, and this, I was like, at that point, John and I were just stating, I was just like, yeah, if this works, it works. If it doesn't, like,
Yeah, it becomes easier to put things into perspective when you have people around you to remind you to keep your life in perspective.
Right.
We have the same coach, and that is actually a piece of advice or a conversation that we have a lot. Is about keeping my world in perspective.
Right.
Because there's so much good happening. There's so many great things in the works, and there's been such a great trajectory to my career, but it is very difficult to, raise 2 kids in New York City and to handle multiple clients at a time and to be sure that the challenges of the job don't kind of anchor you down and slow down your growth, right?
Yeah.
And keeping things in perspective is something that having the right people around you makes it possible, because it takes a lot of work to do it on your own, to really like know on your own that you're doing the right thing, that you're on the right path. Like naturally we doubt ourselves, right?
Yeah, it's easy to stop believing in yourself when things go down and like having those people around you who continuously do and love you and care for you and you trust. And again, like you said, it puts it all into perspective. Like, this matters and these people are here. And then like, if I do this, I do it. If it wasn't meant for me, it wasn't meant for me.
Right. Exactly. Like, put in the work and the rest is out of your control.
Right.
But yeah, like that's the big thing that Carmen says to me all the time. Play your game. Like, just keep playing your game. Don't never come out of the game. Like, always stay in it, stay focused. Yeah,
she always says to me, she's like, oh, small problem.
Yeah, she says that to me a lot. Yeah, she says to me a lot too.
But she's right.
She is right. We sat here the other day, and actually she drew this on my wall, and it's basically like you're here, and you're the only thing you're really upset about is that you're not here,
right?
So you're not higher up,
right?
But it just takes time. It's just process. Just keep putting in the work. So I really like that advice you gave to yourself the day before you started your company to really surround yourself.
I don't know if I worded it well. Yeah.
No, you did. You really surround yourself with the right people, people who are uplifting and can, add that positive and nurturing element, and having the right support around you, especially in your spouse. Like, I feel similar to you that I feel incredibly blessed to have Deborah and the way she supports, my growth and the movement in my business and the ups and downs. And it's tough, it is really tough, but we love this city, for all its faults, we love it. Yeah. And we want to stay here forever. And, that's the work. That's really the work.
Yeah.
So let's change gears a little bit. In doing my research for this, I was reminded of the impact that your wedding had in October. Oh. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about how that entire thing unfolded. Because it was quite spectacular.
Yeah, it really was. Sure. So John and I, my husband, we're planning on, I realize I keep we say Carmen, we say John, as if people know who they are.
I've talked about Carmen before on this pod because I feel like, it's fine. It's all good.
So we were set to get married October 15th in Israel, and we had over 200, I think it was 230 or something, people coming from the States. So a lot of people who moved their lives around, who made a commitment to go, which is just it shows no greater act of love than acts for me. So all my friends booking flights, putting money down to come. It's not a cheap or easy experience.
No, destination wedding has a lot of logistics.
Yeah. So we were so excited. We had spent a lot of time planning. My dad really, honestly, I got to give him all the credit here. He planned pretty much everything, but there was a lot to it. And John and I were we're going to go 2 weeks early. the way it works is Israel hours, I think like 3 to midnight is US hours in Israel. So like I was going to spend the mornings kind of dealing with wedding stuff and then work remote. And John was going to do the same. And so I was finally like starting to check everything out. I was like, wow, this is going to be such a cool wedding. Like I didn't realize half the stuff that was planned, and we were getting so excited about it. And Friday night, go to bed, and Saturday morning, wake up, and there are sirens and everything going off. And we usually don't use our phones on Shabbat, but my phone like wouldn't stop buzzing, and it like went overrid do not disturb. So I was like, okay, I'm going to check what's going on. It's like Israel declares state of war. I'm like, John, this wedding is not happening. Yeah. So we kind of waited to like get a little more information till everything, like I think till like nighttime. A couple of our friends were already there. And at that point, it was very clear, like the situation, what had unfolded. And so our parents really were eager for us to come home, and we made a decision together. And I want to give John credit because like he had a lot of strength in this, when I was like a little bit more like, okay, whatever we do. We weren't scared at all for like our own safety. It was more just like, what are we gonna do with the wedding? And so our rabbi told us, just wait, like everything's gonna be fine. Like wait till Tuesday. So we call him back and we're like, can we just get married on Tuesday? And then that way we can appease our parents. But like, if we just left before, like if we left that Sunday, it would feel like we let them win. Like they came in, like we needed to get married in Israel, and we need to complete like what we started. So we were like, okay, we're just going to go to the wall. We're going to get married, and hopefully we'll get a minyan, which is 10 people. And that was it. We had made friends with our neighbors in Israel on the day that the war broke out, and they were a lovely Australian family, and they were like, oh, we'll invite like, you know, some people, will come, don't worry, we'll be there for you. And like a couple of my parents' friends were there, like my dad's best friend.
People who were like already in Israel.
Exactly. And then I guess that family, the son was in yeshiva, and he told his yeshiva and the like corresponding seminary, which is like the girls' version. And so we didn't know this. And then my rabbi from childhood, when I was, I want to say like 14 or 15, moved to Israel to be a rabbi at Oraita, which is another yeshiva. And so he also told his yeshiva to come. And then John's rabbi, because my husband is a subset of Persian called Mashadi, so the Mashadi rabbi has a like Mashadi yeshiva, and he told some of his, but we didn't like know any of this. So we like, we get ready, we're just like, we're gonna make the best of it. I had one of my best friends was living there, and my other friend, so like 4 girlfriends there, Australian family, like a couple of my parents' friends, my dad's best friend, who's really like a second dad to me. He walked me down the aisle, and we're just like, we're just gonna do this. And then we get there, and there's like hundreds of people, and I'm like, what is going on?
All there for you.
I didn't like process at first because the walls like shut down, so I didn't even know we had gone the day before to like see everything, and there was like no one there. And then all of a sudden there's like and they kept like rolling in, and it was beautiful. So we got married at the wall. I honestly don't think with any money you could like have that same wedding again. It was really beautiful. Everyone just showed up for us, and yeah.
That's pretty. You know what? I was reading an article in the Washington Examiner. I've never read an article in the Washington Examiner until today, but it was titled "The Jewish Wartime Wedding in Israel That Defied Hamas Terrorism." And there's a quote in there that John gives, who I'm very fond of, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
I'm a big fan. He says, "It's disrespectful to our country. This is what the soldiers are fighting for, so people can get married here. So people can live here, and so Jews can enjoy this land. Mothers are sending their sons to the front lines. It's a pretty weak move just to get on a plane and not get married here."
Yeah, very well said.
This was a very courageous moment.
It was.
A lot
of people were very scared. Like a lot of people were like, "Are you crazy? Get out of there!" Yeah. Like it wasn't really. I'm saying it wasn't scary. Like I was, like we were going to get our marriage license from in Jerusalem, bombs were going off. Like, people were like freaking out. Our rabbi's like, no, just chill. Like, 1, 2, 3. I guess but it didn't feel scary to us.
Yeah, well, like I said, this was a very courageous moment in your life and in your relationship with your spouse, with your person.
Right.
So my question as it relates to that is, would you say that this experience somewhat shaped the course of your marriage, or at least had a really notable impact on it? I would imagine that your relationship is never the same when something like this happens, in a good way.
Yeah, it's a good question. I've never really thought about it.
Yeah.
I guess anything strong and extreme that pushes you guys to the next level of growth, or like a decision you make like that, getting married, getting engaged, having a wedding in the middle of a war, and without your parents, having a child, and any of those like pieces of life bring you closer. I don't know if this one, like, notably to like anything else, it was more, but it definitely, like, it put John at a, you saw the quote, like, John's like really my rock, and I don't want to say put him at another like level of like respect, because like I've always respected him, but it just like, it made a light brighter.
You saw him.
Yeah, it allowed me, right, because it gave him the space to do that, because not every day do you get the space to make that decision.
Yeah, to have that kind of courage.
Right. So I guess is the answer, but I don't know if it like.
Well, you'll certainly always remember it.
Yeah, we'll never forget it.
Yeah.
I definitely more than a normal wedding, right? Yeah.
For sure. Being in business, in entrepreneurship, courage often becomes very important. Are you a courageous person in general?
I don't know if I'm courageous, but I'm definitely not fearful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I suppose that's
like,
the same
I don't
thing.
think I'm doing. It isn't like. I don't know how you define courage, but something like, when I think courage in my head, I think of someone who like goes up against the line because like everyone else is scared, right?
Or
and they're
someone who chooses to keep going when everything's working against them.
Right. So I would say, it's more that. I'm just, we keep coming back to this, like, if you keep going,
yes,
like, what if it works out?
Exactly.
What if, like, and so just like never stopping. So like, even like with Israel, like, I wasn't scared. Like, okay, if there's a X in a million chance that someone comes and like during this war and like it's dangerous at the hotel, like, it happens. But like, I don't think that's gonna happen. So let's do it.
Yeah.
Neither of us thought it was going to happen. Or like, if this company doesn't succeed, it doesn't succeed. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. And like, statistically, I feel like it will succeed. Just, it doesn't. Like, I'm not scared of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I think that as an entrepreneur, you need a lot of courage to keep going. Like I get a lot of advice from my father. He built his business as well, so he's definitely, one of my main ears. He's the person I go to for wisdom and for encouragement when I need it in my business.
Does he do the same thing?
No, I'm the only one in my family who does this specifically. I have a brother-in-law who's in real estate, but a different kind of real estate. Mm-hmm. And he often reminds me to have courage. And to keep going. So it's something I realized that courage it's so necessary in any entrepreneurial field.
I guess then the lack of courage would be giving up.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I could think you can fail and be courageous.
I think so too. Yeah,
only
it's not
if you
about
give
failure.
up, are you? Yeah, only if you give up, are you not?
It's about
courageous?
walking away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has your courage ever been tested in your business?
I think almost every week, or there's something where you're just like, oh my God, like, because you don't realize how hard these things are until you actually jump in. Like, I'm jumping into a pool, but then it turns out it's like an ocean with jellyfish and sharks and exactly, and all that stuff. But like, you're gonna get to the other side. So like, yes, every week. Like, when I was fundraising, when I was sleeping at the office, when I don't know, when you think you're gonna close a customer and then they ghost you. Like all these things. And then you look in retrospect and you're like, oh, that was so easy. Like now it was so easy, but at the time it wasn't.
Yeah, hindsight's
or you
always
have to fire your
20/20.
first person. That's not fun.
Yeah.
It's horrible, right? And it's like, okay, well,
on we go.
On we go.
On it goes, this thing of ours. Is what you do teachable? And what I mean I want to tie that question into how difficult is it to find the right people in what you do to work with?
Are you asking in terms of the engineers or to work at my company? Is it teachable or?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I take a very professor type of approach with my work and the people who work on my team. I like.
Okay, I don't take professor approach.
Yeah.
No, I take throw them in.
Yeah, throw them in.
Yeah, so we very rigorously screen for people who come into our company. So, for example, each person who is placed, each engineer, has about 200 interviews to find that person.
Wow.
So extremely intense.
So it's difficult to find the right people.
It's very difficult to find the right people.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to engineering, because we're not just a regular app or we're a deep tech product.
Yes.
So deep tech, cybersecurity, AI, and also before AI was hot.
Yeah.
OpenAI was not a thing. ChatGPT when I started Olympix, we were like, you think you're gonna fix this problem with some mystical AI and cyber? Yeah. And I was like, no, we really are here. The advancements,
it's fantastic.
It's
I love using it. I really do.
Right.
And I was using Midjourney for a while. I was getting into it, and
right.
it's just another way to put your creativity into the universe,
Yeah.
And have it it's like, wow.
Yeah, so it enabled us to do all sorts of things. We built our own model from scratch on, this had never been done with the Web3 ecosystem, building models off of existing smart contracts, off of attack vectors. And so, yeah, it's a deep technical, so to hire someone from a technical perspective who wants to undergo this is very difficult. And so I'd say in our screening, we really vetted if we had, let's say, a $10 million fund, would we give them $1 million of it? If we were an investor, that's what it came down to. Obviously there's do they perform in terms of technological skill and acumen, which is really hard to find as well. But then when it comes down to those, is it him or her that we hire? It's the person who we're wow, that's a self-starter. So most people on my team, not most, everyone, you can just tell them think kind of one line or kind of the customer pain point, and they'll just fix it.
Yeah.
One time I was on a plane and our servers went down, and I didn't know what was going on. I landed on the flight and there were messages on our Twitter, on our LinkedIn. All of our customers were satisfied and everything was fixed. I didn't do anything.
That's
right?
unusual.
Well, because everyone's just takes ownership in my company.
Yeah.
They all it's all of our company. We're all that committed to it. And we have a very innovative culture. So everyone gets a lot of space to innovate on new products and ideas whenever they want to. Mm. So my kind of rule of thumb is if I can't write a one-page letter as to why they shouldn't do something, if they have an idea, go ahead and try it.
Yeah.
Spend a day,
you
spend a week,
them.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say probably not for the space I'm in. Is that everything's teachable? So I guess if someone spent a good amount of time, but it's more that we screen for the self-starter hard worker, which is, I don't know if it is teachable if you throw someone. And if someone's been thrown from a young age.
I feel it's easy to find people who say that they are ready to commit to the work, but then that really gets tested once they're thrown into the mix.
Right.
I've seen your social media more so recently, leading up to this interview. I've been watching pretty much every story you put out. But it is clear that you work at all hours, that you enroll your spouse in empowering you to succeed. And you also give great tips, as it relates to the work and the crypto, the Solana thing. How would you describe your personal relationship to the work? Do you love what you do?
Yeah. I love the problem I'm solving because it comes back to this thing, if we figure this out, I don't think there'll ever be another time in history where basically crypto and the Web3 ecosystem is the next industrial revolution. It's enabling all sorts of things we never thought possible.
Yeah. How will it recover from this like I feel like there's been a lot of stories like this of companies or something that initially takes the world by storm,
Like
crashes
FTX is
to
what you're talking about?
crashes
FTX
to
is
oblivion.
like people are acting like it's tied to crypto, but it's not. It's tied to fraud.
Yeah.
Like, do you stop because of Theranos
Well,
investing in
even with
biotech companies?
even with the web boom, it became such a big thing and then exploded. No one trusted it anymore, but then it built itself back to where it is at this point in time.
Because people built meaningful technology and companies that people began to trust.
Or like Netflix at one point, their stock just tanked while they were making that transition from DVDs to streaming.
Right.
And just now they're just a monster. So it seems very common that like industries and companies will, really grab the world by storm. The bubble will burst, but then it will slowly inflate again.
Right.
So what do you see as like the trajectory, like what's going to happen to this Web3 ecosystem?
Oh, it's going to be huge. It's going to continue to grow. People are pouring, like internationally, people are pouring so much money into this. It's not just, forget
But it's
America,
not going to be like chimpanzee pictures and stuff like that.
No, it will. It will. Like with every industry, there's chimpanzees and there's, shiny objects and things like that. But like NFTs or these kind of pieces of the puzzle that you're alluding to are similar to like betting.
Yeah.
People are just like, oh, I think this, but like, is betting a big industry?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So if people want to bet on what NFT is going to do well, like art, it's harder to prove out or to showcase like value as opposed to a protocol that's generating revenue or, I don't know, like a game, like a lot of Web3, like a lot of crypto is in gaming. Yeah. So like, okay, this is really interesting. A friend of mine has this company called Cryptoys. And basically did you ever play like Aqua Fish or any of those like Facebook games or like
probably
online,
yeah,
right, like Webkins or something like that?
Yeah.
And maybe you've seen this with your kids, but they'll like beg you, like, can you buy me this extra accessory? Can you give me $5? Yeah. So one of my friends is doing is he's like tokenizing these things, so you actually own it. He's like, there will be a time when your kid's looking, you're like, you paid for this and you didn't actually own it, because right now what you're doing is you're just giving money to the company. Yeah, it's not sitting anywhere. They could pull it. They could pull it from you at any point. With Web3 and this ecosystem, the blockchain, it's immutable. You own it. It's there forever. So it introduces this whole new paradigm of like ownership. And so people talk about this a lot with like iterations of the web. So Web 1 is like read. It was just like when the internet first came out, you could read things online. Web 2 is you could read write. So you could begin emails, social media came into play, and now it's read write own.
Yeah, I was going to Web 3 is kind of like now you could do whatever you want.
And you can own stuff. You can you can own your data. You can you're taking away from big corporations.
Yeah. That's interesting. I feel like I've related Web 2.0 or Web 2 to life in that now we're kind of living in a time because there's all this access to social media and there's all this open access to creativity that it's also mirroring the same thing in life in general. You can build and do whatever you want. The amount of entrepreneurs in our generation is, far surpasses the amount of our parents' generation.
And that's part of like the beautiful moment of time we're in.
Yes. Yeah, it's a crazy moment in time.
People even 3 years ago, you need to have a developer to start a startup. Now you can just use AI to write your code.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy, right? Like you need half the developers. Even you can hire people internationally easily and pay less. There's a lot of opportunities today that we didn't have. And so like it comes back to Olympix. Like I don't think there'll ever be a point in time where I have this opportunity. There's like a huge clear problem. Security is not good.
Yeah.
If someone solves the proactive security part, security will be better. If security is better, more people will enter the ecosystem.
Yeah. And as that ecosystem expands, your company will expand with it.
Yeah. But right now, security sucks. We have part of that, and we're working on that. So
yeah. I'm with you. So what would you say is the best part of the job?
People who love our product. Like the best part of, I told you that story where the servers went down is we didn't find out because we got some notification. Like we didn't even have that infrastructure set up because we were so busy building. We found out because 5 or 6 users had messaged us like, why is this tool down? We need it. Like what's going on? And so it's like to have that love and loyalty to the product, that you built something that actually matters and actually makes an impact and people rely on a day-to-day is really powerful. So I think that's number one before anything.
I love that. It's really like the satisfaction that you get from seeing it work and seeing the other person satisfied. Wow.
Yeah, and that you're making an impact.
That's a hospitality thing. You have a little hospitality in you.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
Continue to grow this.
More.
More and more until we get it fully right and we get 100% of developers using our tools and automate so much of the stack that's right now manual.
Well, I have every confidence in your ability and your capacity to do the work and to love the work every step of the way. Thank you so much for doing this and being here. I appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. And maybe in like a year from now, we can do a part 2 and what's going on in this ecosystem that you speak of. I like that you refer to it as an ecosystem.
It really is. It's crazy. Like the way communities form here, it's an ecosystem. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
What did I do?
You did great. That was great.